Welcome everybody to Studio 214, the show where college students take on bigger than college topics. My name is Hello Karen, and these are my co-hosts, Cynthia and Malachi. For this episode, we're going to be talking about a more serious subject, mental health. What are some common problems we see today? And how is culture affecting mental health second by second? Find out all of that and more on this episode of Studio 214. Mental health is a touchy subject. I mean, it can be something that some people want to talk about, some don't, especially back in the past. Mm-hmm. So let's go ahead and talk about our, let's get into it.
So for me, I think mental health being a touchy subject kind of varies with age. So for example, like the older generation, at least to my understanding, grew up where it wasn't like a taboo thing to talk about, but it was kind of like you don't talk about it, you keep pushing forward and it'll eventually go away type of thing.
Yeah, like brushed under the rug.
Yeah, it was brushed under the rug. And then now there was a point where we're Gen Z and like the younger generation were so avid about being vocal about how your mental health has affected you, whether it's good or bad. But then after COVID, since everyone was locked and isolated, I still feel like on the screen they say like, oh, we should be talking about it, let's tweet our emotions, do that. But then when it comes to face-to-face interactions, they're either scared to do it or they're too shy. Same thing with like anger. Mm-hmm. Same kind of thing. Like the older generation, they believed fight it out, and then that was it. Brush it over the rug. Yeah. We don't snitch on anybody, whatever. Now people fight with the keyboard. They don't like to do anything face to face because we had, at least in developmental years, we had to isolate ourselves. So we had to grow to learn how to do things on our own, mm-hmm. kind of. And I feel like people kind of got scared just being inside for that long. So they, at least now, I feel like people are scared to talk about their true feelings, and then when they do, some people think it's cringy. But I'll get into that for like the next segment. What about you, Cynthia?
Well, I feel like the mental health has been like gaslit so much from the older generation, and with like how they don't see it as important, mm-hmm. and how they, like, especially when after COVID and everything happened, they decided to do mental health days, and everyone was like, oh, you guys are just being lazy, you just want a day off and like just do nothing. Mm-hmm. But they don't see the seriousness of, the mental health, and how like is literally like everything, because our brain is literally everything for us. We would not be functional without our brain, and not having mental health like coincide with also everything that happened with the pandemic. And like I just feel like the older generation just completely disregards it.
Yeah, I don't understand how, like, older generation, they will, if they have a cough when they wake up in the morning, they have to stay home.
Yeah.
But if they have like a bad thought or just wake up with a bad headspace, they don't care. But that is also a physical thing that is sick, mm-hmm. About you. Like your brain is emitting things into your body that is making you feel this way. Therefore, you need to like stay home, figure it out, like do whatever you need to do to cope with that. But they are like, oh, well, since it's in my head and since these are concepts that I'm receiving, and it's not like I can physically feel it like as a cough or like a runny nose or like any symptoms, then I don't need to stay home and think on it.
Mm-hmm. Basically. I mean, I agree with both I agree with both of y'all, mm-hmm. with the past generations kind of looking at mental health like literally it's just something in your head, and now me being a little bit older and seeing the evolution, I guess you would say, like being a kid in the 90s, the only mental health issue, I guess you would say, that I ever knew of was kids having ADD or ADHD, adult attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, whatever it's called nowadays. That's all I knew that existed. I didn't know there was such thing as anxiety. I learned of depression as a teenager, but those things weren't talked about. Like ADD was, they would load kids up with Ritalin and things like that, but everything else, it just wasn't talked about. Like myself, I deal with anxiety, and growing up, I thought the way I felt was normal because it was something that wasn't discussed. And now, I have adult children and I have small children, and I see like y'all's generation, because y'all are the same age as my children. It's like I have hope because I feel like y'all's generation is really pressing the issue of mental health and how important it is. Unlike my generation and generations before, where it was not talked about. Now it's a big deal. Now everything revolves around mental health. Like you said, Cynthia, if you don't have your mental health, you really don't have anything. Hearing all that, it gives me a lot of hope for the future. It really does, because mental health is so important. I mean, it feels like that's what my life has consisted of, is mental health to some extent. So it's a big deal, and I'm just glad that it's actually an issue that's talked about nowadays.
And then one of the last things I'll mention for this segment is I feel like now, since we are so adamant about getting to know about mental health, that will also help us along in the future. Like, for example, my grandmother, I know that she, like, in the past she talked about how she struggled with depression, but she didn't know it was depression, so she was just kind of went through it, and she was like, yeah, that was that. And I was like, you just we're talking about it like it was just another day in the life. But then now she gets to it and she's like, she doesn't know how to deal with it, if that kind of makes sense. Like, it's not too extreme to where like we don't need to talk about it or anything like that, but I feel like if she, back in like when she was growing up, if it was more of like a understood subject, then when you get older and you don't have really anyone to help you out and you're by yourself, then you know how to go about certain situations. Yeah.
I wonder, real quick, I just want to say this one and then we'll move to the next subject. But I wonder why it's been that way for the past generations. Is it just like a lack of knowledge? Was it like a fear of being looked at like you're weak? I mean, I wonder what it was that kept people, keeping mental health issues just so isolated. And
I feel like it's a mixture of both, because through the older generation, their main focus was work.
Yes.
Working and getting, money and everything. So if you were just feeling bad in their way of thinking, that it was just a way to not work. And so they made it like a taboo because they didn't see it as important.
Yeah.
It truly is important.
Yeah. Very, very. That's crazy. Well, I guess I don't know how to enter to this next segment.
I mean, we can still keep talking about how the generations differ. There's different ways to understand mental health now, because like as we were talking about back in the day, there weren't really any outlets for it. So I guess we can go into more information about how we receive information on our mental health, like what the culture's like now.
Yes, definitely.
And see how it has taken a turn for the worse. So this next one's called Culture Vulture.
Ooh, nice.
I'm gonna take a sip of my Baja Blast. So I kind of have two sides of the story. I believe that social media and the integration of social media and culture is so strong. It's slowly becoming a little too much, but we'll get into that in a later date. And I feel like social media and pop culture has been such a, like, it went from not talking about mental health at all to a sudden rise.
Definitely.
And one of the first examples that I was talking about when we were writing the show was Logic, the rapper. He's kind of famous, like he comes in and out of popularity a little bit. He made a song, and the title of it was what the suicide hotline number was.
Oh, that was a good song.
I'm pretty sure it changed now. The number, the song is still the same. And he got popular on it, and he like would win. I don't know if he won a Grammy. I didn't do any of my research on his musical success, but it's like one of his most streamed songs. So he got money from it. But then there's like the dark side of it. Where did that money go? I don't know if he donated it to any like non-profits or
like a good cause,
like any good causes or anything. Like he made a check off of bringing awareness to mental health, and it was a good staple for its time. But then no one saw where that like product went, other than the fact that people thought it was a catchy song and played on the radio, whatever. And then it brought awareness to the phone number, which is no longer the same phone number. So now what do we do? Like, it's not the same phone number. So he was heavily relying on the phone number being the same.
That's crazy. You would think they would keep the number the same.
I think it's like a 3-digit number and then like kind of like 911, but it starts with a 9. I don't remember what it is. But then
The more you know.
Another thing that kind of goes into my next topic is, at least in my generation, when that song came out, we thought of Logic as like, oh, he's about to be the next Eminem. Like, he's coming up. He's like a hard rapper, and he's white. And so when he released this, everyone was like, okay. Like, it kind of shook the world a little bit because we weren't ready for what he was talking about. But then it's slowly, as they started overplaying the song on the radio, people started to think it was cringy because they overplay it. And, you know, that taboo and that stigma of mental health slowly, like, deteriorated the weight of the song. So people started making fun of it, talking about how that's, like, his worst song of all time. And that started his fall off and da-da-da-da-da. And that happened mostly on social media. Like, with not in the introduction of Twitter, because Twitter's been around for a long time. Now it's X, whatever you want to call me. I don't want to get corrected. You come to me with X, I'm not talking to you. But like on Twitter, we will take at least the younger generation will take traumatic things and then turn them into memes. That's why.
Yes, it's awful.
Yeah, like for example, one thing that I put on my graphics is the submarine this year.
Yes.
And everyone on social media just thought it was okay to make fun of it because they were rich and they deserved it.
Yeah,
like
their lives didn't matter.
Say it was like a cast from a TV show. They're rich, but you had a connection with them, and if they died, everyone would be so sad. They would be so sad. But they're rich. They had money. They just made a poor choice at a poor time, and then I feel like they didn't. Obviously, no one deserves to die, at least in that magnitude.
Yeah.
Because like that was like they crumbled under pressure, underwater. It's a lot. But people took that and was like, let's make a joke out of it because they're rich and we are the middle class, so we're gonna make fun of the rich class. I'm like, how do y'all not see what y'all are doing? Same thing. It kind of happens with 9/11. I'm not gonna go into too much detail, but they make jokes on it, and that is like one of the. I mean, I'm not gonna say the only because we've had a lot of terrorist attacks, but the biggest terrorist attack that has affected the United States of America, and that is why there has to be a campaign now to not forget about 9/11 because everyone's taking 9/11 and watering it down. But if that happened now, if anything of that nature happened now, I don't know what they would do, because like, what are you gonna take something? If that happened now, would you take that and make a meme out of it? I don't think so. Seeing the tragedy live of like thousands of people like dying and thinking that it's funny, I don't know. I don't like. There's dark humor and then there's that, and I believe that should not be a thing. There can be some leeway. Like the submarine is not as harsh as the 9/11 because that was innocent people, and then the submarine was kind of like rich people that could have prevented it by the signs. Yeah, they made the choice.
Bad choice.
Yeah, but I don't know. I just feel like there's two sides of it right now, at least. Like pop culture is kind of using it as a platform to make money off of it, and they might not intentionally be doing it, but they're doing it, and we're not seeing the result of it. And then there's our side of it where social media is just throwing it in the trash, just throwing anything that is going to make us a stronger community in the trash by making a joke out of it. So sorry about that rant, but go into your Cynthia.
To kind of piggyback off of that, I feel like the younger generation, like, kind of made social media kind of a trauma bonding experience a lot. So, like, that's kind of where I feel like the jokes come in with, you know, trauma. Because when you're trauma bonding, you try to lighten up the mood any way that you can, but sometimes some people, obviously take it super far. But with like so much that has been happening through the years, I feel like it is like kind of numbing to a lot of people, especially the young generation, with just all the tragedies and stuff that has been happening. So I feel like the social media is just a gateway, just something that they can take their mind off of. But with people making a profit off of that is really the downfall of everything. And that's like, especially with like the Logic song and everything, I feel terrible that like he is getting basically not any recognition for that song because they overplayed it for profit, most likely. So it just devalues the message, and especially for people that are very avid fans of music. And I love when artists try to share their story on their mental health, and kind of be like, this is how I'm going with this stuff.
Yeah.
You may be going through the same thing, or this exists because I'm going through this. Really, I feel helps the younger generation just kind of see that, like, oh, I'm not the only person that's going through this thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's the only good side of like the social media
and like culture
like enveloping or like bringing everyone together with that sense of togetherness. And of course, there's always a good side and there's always a bad side on a lot of stuff, especially with a lot of the older generation being like, I never had like mental health or anything.
Yeah.
And just kind of just pushing them down. But with social media and with everyone kind of sharing, their experiences together, it really, gives a gooder light on everything.
Yeah. And I think, especially into the music, because I know you're about to go into music, I have seen slowly that the older generation is kind of taking a turn, because they see that the younger generation is so adamant on it, speaking on their mental health and their experiences with it in their songs, and seeing the success from it, and because of how relatable they are. And so the older generation is slowly being like, okay, maybe they don't want us to talk about guns and drugs and all that stuff. Yeah. We can still talk about that to like deter the subject and like distract you, whatever. But like one good example that I can think of while you were talking was Kendrick Lamar on his most recent album. He had a bunch of songs that caught me off guard, because I expect Kendrick Lamar as like I'm going to talk about black culture, and then I'm going to talk about growing up in Compton, which is like both very shocking stuff. Like there's very shocking stuff, but it wasn't very like the emotional side of it. So he got to this album, and he talked about like domestic violence and how that affected him. Talked about how in black culture people don't believe in therapy, and how you just tough it out, rough it out. Even it doesn't matter if you're young, old, it doesn't matter. You do not go to therapy. And he's like, he literally says, I don't need no therapy. And like there's like a girl in the skit, she's like, you really need some therapy. And he's like, I do not need no therapy. And that's like they're arguing about it because he doesn't believe that he needs it, because that's how he was born and raised. And there's so many other things, like how COVID affected his mentality, being isolated, his family dynamic because there was someone in the LGBT community, and how that affected everything. It's a very, very eye-opening album to listen to if you want to have a chance to listen to it. But I just think it's really, really cool that because of the younger generation slowly, like not even slowly, rapidly opening up about their feelings, the older generation's like, I want to try that. So
yeah, no, definitely. And like kind of piggybacking on what you were saying as well, Cynthia, like how with how social media and just media in general it has through artists and different outlets is bringing attention, bringing good positive attention to mental health and getting messages out there. You know, more songs like what you were talking about nowadays are talking about mental health issues and talking about suffering and things like that, and helping people to not feel like they're alone. But on the other hand, you know, it seems like there is two sides to it, because like on one hand you've got this big support system now that's been created for mental health, like we're you know, this is important. But on the other hand, you've got like the internet trolls that you spell something wrong or you forget to use caps lock or whatever, and they're quick to tell you, you know, basically sometimes to like just
end it all.
Yeah. I mean, it'll get really, really bad. And then you hear some artists will be glorifying like self-harm and things like that. So it's, you know, it's muddy waters, I guess you could say. You got to tread lightly.
Yeah.
But, because like Lil Peep, I think about Lil Peep. He passed away, and he had an addiction problem. And in his music, though, that's what he talks about a lot is his suffering and his, you know, battles in his mind and all that. And I feel like the media and the spotlight and all that just kind of, rather than helping, it made it worse. Yeah. And because you see so many of these rappers that are they're falling out. But this has been every generation thing. You know, Kurt Cobain, Janis Joplin. There's artists and musicians. I mean, there's artists and actors and actresses, generations before us that have suffered and have come to a early ending too soon. And a lot of it, I think, has to do with the spotlight and social media nowadays and internet trolls, and it's just what a tangled web we weave.
Yeah, I think. And this is going to be my last tangent on this segment. There, like as you said, you can see it in every generation. Like I can think of very specific things, like Outkast, Hey Ya. You hear Andre 3000 in the back with the ad lib. He says like, "Y'all don't hear me. Y'all just want to dance."
Yeah. And
I was like, why? First of all, it caught me off guard because I was like, he just dropped that in like one of the arguably their most popular song, where it's like a wedding song where you're dancing to it, but you're not listening to what he wants to say. Yeah. You don't care about that because you want to just listen to music that makes you feel good. That makes you feel good, not the person that is making the money off of what you're listening to feel good. And then another thing that I thought about was Justin Bieber. However you feel about Justin Bieber, I know there's a lot of controversy around him, but regardless, like his story about how he was like an industry plant kind of, because he started from a very young age.
Yeah, he was found on like YouTube.
Yeah, and went like right into stardom, has affected his mental health, and like how open he's been about that is really, I guess it's hard for celebrities to do. And it was really eye-opening for him because I think, is he kind of cringy? Yeah, because he's like a boy band-ish, like, do I listen to some of the songs? Yeah, radio, whatever. But seeing his story of like, oh, well, I was a kid, I never really had time to grow up because I was already in the studio, and they always were thinking about me as a business and not me as a person. I was like, I have never really thought about that. Like, there's a lot of celebrities out there that...
Britney Spears, Michael Jackson, I mean, there's...
So many.
It's...
And now
the list just goes on
and now they had to wait till now to be like, here is my truth. Yeah. And I'm like, why wait till now? Why what was it that, and it's gonna just be a question that we keep asking this episode is why? Like why do we not talk about this earlier?
Pride.
I feel it's a bit of pride and also a bit of just the spotlight, especially for like actors and musicians, because like with how much that people like absorb from them, especially like through, you know, interviews and stuff where they do talk, you know, and if they try to talk in a way that is not how they're viewed, it kind of puts people off. Like, for example, Robin Williams, he died of suicide, and like everyone knows him as such a cheerful person. Yeah. And how much that he made people tearful when he was in turmoil.
Like he was suffering.
Honestly. So like I feel like he couldn't, you know, handle it anymore, which is why him and a lot of other people have just taken their lives because it's just so much pressure. and like that's the hardship that they have to go through.
Yeah.
And with everyone else, I feel like if they rely on, you know, the people around them and talk about it, you know, because it's always a conversation needs to happen.
Yes.
That they don't have to go through it.
Yeah.
Honestly.
That's why I say check on your happy friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's a good transition into our next segment about being aware of
Definitely.
everything.
For sure.
I'm going to use this kind of as like a PSA. I've been doing a lot of PSAs out there.
Knowledge is power, Malachi.
Thank you.
Yes.
I am not a spokesperson. This is just from personal experience. But at least for me, in order to have this true, not knowledge, but I don't know, feel content of like how my mental health is going, whether or not like I know too much about it, too little about it, at least to know that I'm good where I'm at, even if I'm sad, I'm still good, is you have to acknowledge two things. You have to acknowledge your input, meaning your environment, what is surrounding you. Is it bad things? Is it drugs, alcohol, things that could lead you down a darker path that got like Robin Williams to where he was at, got Juice WRLD to where he was at, all that stuff? Or are you in a good space? And then if you analyze that you're in a good space but you're still feeling this way, then it might be internal. Mm-hmm. So that's how you at least acknowledge it. And then now you have to go about looking at your output. What are you doing in regards to how that makes you feel? Mm-hmm. I brought some things around to show like what I do at least. I started reading, which is not my cup of tea, but I started reading. I have this book called A Little Life. It's a hefty one. It's what this candle is sitting on. It has 800 pages. I just know it's about college students and how they move to New York and how they are more of a chosen family than their real. Like they have family dynamics, some of them do, and then some of them don't. And it's about how they relate to each other. And apparently there's a lot more stuff in that book that I haven't gotten to yet, but it's very real and serious and open. So that is one thing that I do to keep my mind off of stuff, or like if I know that I'm like, if I know I'm isolated and I acknowledge that I'm isolated and I know that makes me feel like sad, then I need to fill my mind with something, so I read. And then another thing that I do is I started bullet journaling, and there's like different little things like it's kind of like a yearbook, but like an emotional yearbook type thing. Yeah. So like I have a page in there where like every day after the day's done, I think of my day, and then I will like color code like how I felt that day. So like I remember specifically November 6th, I was tired because I had work. So I put like green as my tire color. And then
that's pretty neat.
Yeah, and then like another page that I put is like the highlight of my day. And that one, little side tangent, is hard sometimes because like, and not because I'm like all like sad, woe was me all the time, but like even if I'm like sitting at home, trying to find like the best part of your day is so hard because I'm like, what did I do today? And so that also like putting it down into putting your emotions down into something physical helps you acknowledge things. Like for example, like the highlight of my day, say I'm like laying in my bed all day just watching shows. That forces me to find something positive about my day, even if I feel like there was nothing positive about my day.
That's a coping skill.
Because I was pessimistic. Like I am pessimistic. I am negative about everything. Everyone thinks I'm like over negative, but I think I'm just trying to be very, very realistic about stuff. So like when I'm laying in bed, I'm like, nothing happened today, so there's no highlight of my day. But then you have to like step outside of yourself and be like, well, laying in your bed is like a good thing to do. Like
that's a nice luxury.
Like having rest is a good thing to do, because I know like once I grow up I'm gonna have to have a full-time job like busting my butt to live. So like I need to enjoy that time now. But
amen.
And I need to enjoy that time now.
Sure.
But I would not have acknowledged that if I didn't put it down on like a physical thing of paper. So acknowledge what you're surrounding yourself by, and then put it out and like talking to someone, put it in your notes app, put it on something. Get it out, because if it's sitting with you, then it's not gonna do anything.
And it's also gonna like really just hinder your mind as well, because what like really helped me in like through all of our turmoils is like it's so like basic, but it's like TikTok. Like I freaking love TikTok. It's great, but like even through TikTok, you know, people have put their own experiences and their own just day-to-day like struggles, and like especially for like the mental health and everything, and have people that have like been diagnosed with autism, ADHD, who are neurodivergent, and have put what they go through every single day. And a lot of people, and me especially, has seen, oh, like I go through that, like I thought like that was normal, and have seen all of like the different things that nobody really tells us.
Yeah.
And through that outlet, I feel is a really good thing, because what you said with putting it on paper and seeing it every single day, like it helps me so much, and I'm sure it helps everyone else that also goes through the same thing.
I read a study that said when it comes to writing things down, like if you have goals and you actually write them down on paper, I don't remember the number, but you're way more likely to actually achieve something or follow through with something when you write it down versus just keeping it in your noggin.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of people make like goal boards, or like I forgot what they call it, but
like mood boards.
Yeah, like something.
I've seen stuff like that. It'd be like a collage, and it'll be maybe stuff they want to do.
Like manifestation boards, I think is what they're called.
I have so much catching up to do on things.
Yeah.
Oh man.
But I feel like having those goals and putting it on paper really is just will help anyone get through anything that they're going through.
Definitely. And when it comes to being mental health and then being a parent, because I have 4, believe it or not, 4 kids, it's crucial. You can make or break a person, basically. You have their whole life in your hands. And so being a parent, it's your job really to create a safe environment for them to thrive in, for them to grow up in, for them to feel safe.
Yeah.
And I see, I don't know, it's hard for me to say. I can't judge people because everybody's family's dynamic is different, but it just seems like there's not a lot of parents, out there, maybe because I read so much stuff on social media, that not all parents think that way. Not all parents realize that children are a product of their environment. There is the nature nurture, but controversy, but the environment that a child is brought up in is crucial to their their development, their mental health, everything. So it's super important. Just like that's number one.
I feel like a lot of people, like a lot of parents, think that their child is only the product of them, of like their characteristics and their thoughts, when really it's a whole nother person. And a whole nother brain and a whole nother emotions and everything.
Yeah.
So they don't see that, and it really hinders like just them growing up.
Yeah,
definitely.
I think parents need to be there as an outlet for their child, not as the striving force of how their child should act and think.
Yeah, and they shouldn't be the one creating the trauma.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Amen to that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which goes into our next episode, kind of, with family dynamic.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun episode. I can't wait, because I've talked about my kids and everything, so y'all will get to see pictures.
Now it's your time to put them on blast.
Yes. It'll be their time to shine.
Yes.
So it's cool. It's really cool. It's cool being a parent. Just thought they're out there. So they're talking about us. I'm like, I hope their mental health is okay. They've had me as a mom.
Check on your friends today.
Yeah.
For sure. But
I feel like
oh my gosh. Well, that's all we have for today's episode. Tune in next week where we'll talk about our family. See you next time.
Oh my God.